Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, an Apple Top 10 business management podcast in Canada. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Our special guest this week is Jean-François Archambault, founder and general manager of La Tablée de Chef. Since 2002, he has pursued his bold idea to recover food surplus items from hotels, caterers, major events, sporting events, in order to feed people in situations of food insecurity. This is recorded live in person at SIAL Montreal. In fact, the whole video of our interview will be live at the same time the podcast goes out, up on our YouTube channel. In 2024, he was knighted by the Ordre national de Quebec. I didn't know Quebec knighted people, so that's a new learning for me.
Well, they don't knight people. They just give, there's an order, similar to the Order of Canada. Yeah.
I see. Well, it says on his website that he was knighted, so I would have kidded him about that. Let him maybe, like a fork and knife on each shoulder.
Jean-François, no.
Yeah,
right. But La Tablée des Chefs is just an amazing initiative that he started. So obviously, whatever awards he gets, he deserves very much.
Well, apparently, it's the most prestigious recognition awarded by the Quebec government. Now, you and I meet and talk to a lot of very impressive people, Sylvain. I was captivated by his accomplishments and conviction. I mean, at some points in the interview, I forget to ask a question. I was just so amazed by the work he's doing, right? And you had met him before, and I think you've spoken to him again, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be on stage with him in September in Get Know and to talk about food insecurity. Obviously, a very, very generous person and
No
so
kidding.
kind. Oh yeah, absolutely. And he's got a huge following in Quebec and now across the country because he's got these events all over the country. So La Tablée des Chefs is becoming more well known now from coast to coast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a Quebec thing. That is for sure. Now, Sylvain, we are many, many time zones away from each other. I think you're wrapping up your day, and I'm just getting my day started. That's how far away you are now.
Absolutely.
Now, let's start. Where are you, and what are you doing?
I'm in Cork, Ireland. Yes. And I've been in Ireland since 1989. So it's been a while. And so I'm on the board of the International Food and Agribusiness Management Association, better known as IFAMA. And I was asked to speak this year about consumer trust and provenance of food. Of course, Europeans did hear about the Buy Canadian movement in reaction to what was going on in the U.S., of course.
Yep.
So I spoke on stage this afternoon, actually, in front of about 400 to 500 people from all over the world. And I think there's probably about 30 countries here in Cork for the week. And so the event started on Monday. It ends tomorrow. And it's one of my favorite events of the year globally because you get to realize that Canada is just not alone in dealing with some of the major issues like climate change, consumer trust, trust in social media, trust in legacy media as well. I mean, those are all the things that are impacting the industry. And the big word this year, the big acronym is GLP-1. GLP-1.
Okay.
Recognized as now the most disruptive force affecting the agri-food industry globally. Can you imagine? And I actually had dinner last night with the chairman of GBS. You've probably heard of GBS in Brazil.
Sure.
So he's responsible for the work of 280,000 people globally. Wow. I also met the vice president of PepsiCo in the United States last night and today again. So
tell the audience, just before we move on, tell the audience a little bit more about who GBS is. I might know who they are, but our audience may not.
Yeah, so GBS is the largest protein company in the world. They call themselves a protein company, but they're one animal in 5 is actually harvested by GBS in the world. Wow. So it's a big organization, 280,000 people. It's a private company, it's a publicly traded company. It used to be private, and their revenues are $100 billion a year.
Wow, yeah. 1 in 5.
So I had dinner with the chairman last night. Yeah, because he's from Cork. He's originally from Cork.
Oh, okay. But he's in Brazil now, right? They're headquartered
he lives
in Brazil,
right? And the vice president of PepsiCo is from Cork as well originally, but she lives obviously in the United States. So she knows everyone in Canada from the PepsiCo family, including our very own Kara Keating.
Recent recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from
Exactly.
Retail Council of Canada. That she's quite accomplished, and she says hello. By the way,
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Picture of us.
So where are you right now? Now I know that we're a top rank podcast according to Apple, but are you in California to thank Apple for that?
I thought I'd go right to the source. I am here in Cupertino, California.
Yeah,
sitting on the upstairs beautiful visitor center, which is basically a ginormous flagship store for Apple.
People can go on YouTube
me,
and see the scene behind Michael. It's beautiful.
It is one of the most impressive buildings in the world. It is, I think there's 14,000 people who work here. It's a large circle. It doesn't accept visitors, even though I mistakenly drove into the wrong parking lot and almost became a visitor. And met some of the wonderful security team before I went here, who are all quite nice. But yeah, I'm in California. It's very, very sunny. Hence, if you're on YouTube, you see my squinting. Sorry about that. It's very sunny California. There's nothing but sun in the forecast. And I'm here to cover the opening of TNT. So TNT, Loblaws TNT is opening a retail store in San Jose, California, which is about 5 or 10 minutes away from here. It's their first, not their first U.S. store, but it is their first store in California. So I'm interviewing the one and only Tina Lee, the CEO of TNT. So I'll be doing that for one of my other podcasts. So that is what brings me here to California. So it's great to be here. In the news, by the way, let's get to the episode. In the news, we're going to be covering the federal government, who had a busy week in the food industry, food waste across the generations. Foodtastic gets even more foodtastic. The return of my ability to make fruity summer cocktails, and lots of energy in Quebec around energy drinks. Now, I wanted to start off, Sylvain. We were talking off mic that I think our last episode is going to set the record. It's probably going to be number one. Of course, that was the episode.
I wonder why.
Well, what did you make of the? Did you get any direct feedback? I saw lots of feedback all the way, whether it was on LinkedIn or X. I saw feedback all the way from kind of our sentiment, which was respect for coming on and talking to us, and then I saw feedback about they're never coming back and they're done once Dunkin' Donuts happens, and all kinds of stuff in between. What did you get any direct feedback from people?
I don't pay attention to what's going on social media because most of it is driven by emotion, to be honest, and some of it is frankly inappropriate. I would say
that's charitable. That's charitable, by the way.
I mean,
some of the
seriously, but I did get some feedback directly from some people who actually wrote op-eds about our interview, and they were very thoughtful. Words, and I mean, some of it it had everything to do with Tim Hortons' positioning, of course, on the market and what they've been trying to do. 3 franchise owners of Tim Hortons actually reached out to me that I know to me to thank us, you and me, for allowing Tim Hortons to be on our show, and all 3 of them were very thankful for us interviewing both Axel and Duncan, and all felt that both did a really good job explaining what they were up to, and I agreed with them.
Well, I think that is a muscle that should be more exercised by Tim Hortons and other major companies. I think they, the more that they can present their side, and I think it helps. I think just dialogue just really helps. So,
the fact that they're out there telling their stories is a big deal as far as I'm concerned. They're not hiding, so that's great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about the cleansing powers of sunlight. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about these issues of what people are talking about, whether it's temporary foreign workers or the quality of the food. And you heard comments about both of those on the interview. All right. Like I said, big week in Ottawa around food strategy. What strategy was your comment to me? The Competition Bureau. So it seems to be the week of food again, because, it's not like they haven't done a report in 2023. So take us through what's happened in the past week.
Yeah. So first of all, there was an announcement this week from the Competition Bureau. In fact, I can say it now. I was consulted by the bureau last week, and they asked me. They told me in confidence what they were up to, what they were going to be announcing this week. I told them it made total sense. I think it's a really logical follow up to their 2023 study. We've been working with the Bureau on a regular basis, and frankly, it's been a struggle for them to figure out what they need to do when they grow up, sort of thing. And now they have more power. They don't necessarily know how to use it, but they have more power and they want to understand. So they're going out to understand the entire supply chain, understanding where the point of tensions are across the supply chain. And frankly, the whole idea is to see how they can actually make the whole industry more competitive, which I think is a noble cause. I did tell them, listen, if you're consulting with people, this is the agri-food sector. If you invite everyone in the same room and if you expect them to talk to in front of their competitors and other people in the industry, it's not going to happen, especially if the theme is competition. So
Sure.
they're actually going to make a deliberate effort to reach out to specific actors in the industry to get better data for their analysis, which I think, and it was actually mentioned in the press release. And also, the other concern that I had initially, and I didn't have a chance to look at the scope of the mandate, but I did tell him to look into food service as well, because in manufacturing, a lot of
Great point.
companies, a lot of companies do cover both, right? Both worlds, retail and
Sure.
service. My guess is that they'll naturally venture into service, which is basically 40% of all of our
Right.
money that is spent on food. So it's not insignificant.
And so, what to be clear for the audience who may have missed or not seen all the headlines or read all the headlines, what the Competition Bureau is going to go is all the way back to the farm, right? All the way back to
farm
seed
gate
and
store,
fertilizer, and
farm
then
gate
transportation, all these
exactly.
components, right? All the way up to and including
Instead of
grocery
just
stores, right?
looking at the
Grocery.
retail
Yeah.
sector
Yep.
and basically acknowledge that there's no competition or there's lack thereof. I mean, whenever someone tells me there's not enough competition, to me, do you understand capitalism? I mean, there's always room for more competition, no matter what. I mean, and I actually got the question today here in Ireland. So do you think that, because Ireland is actually facing the same problem, the number 3 grocer, Musgrove, was actually speaking right before me, and he's accused of gouging consumers in Ireland, the same as in Canada. Australia has the same problem. UK has the same problem.
Everywhere.
So I think it's important to, instead of accusing grocers, to appreciate that whatever structure we have in place is the product of more consolidation up the food chain. So you kind of have to look at what else is going on within the food industry to better appreciate why we have what we have.
Well, and comments, feedback from Gary Sands from the independent grocers, Kim Furlong from the major grocers was like very happy that the Competition Bureau is looking backwards into the whole supply chain. I saw Michael Graydon commenting about the opportunity to look at transportation systems because he's been long a proponent of building more manufacturing here, food processing, and the process of moving those goods across this great land. All right, so that's what's new. It's a big week,
and of course there was another announcement last week, a $3.2 billion announcement. Focusing on a new food strategy.
A new food, because the old did we have a food strategy? Not an existing. No.
Well,
and it's how many? It's over how many years? Like 10 years or something.
About 10 years, yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
I was testifying in Ottawa in this week. I didn't even have a chance to tell you, but I showed up a 29th time. Well, from Ireland, I was testifying here in Ottawa, and I was asked a question, were you consulted for the food strategy? And I said, well, I'm not a Liberal card member. I'm not a Liberal card holder, so I'm not on the list. I'm not part of the group. Because I can tell you, I mean, I got to tell you that photo op when Mr. Carney was announcing the new food strategy, I saw like 15, 20 people in the background. All of them are very smart people. But this is really, we've reached a point of corporate welfare beyond reasoning, really. And because I think the list, it's not a strategy, it's a list of investments, really. That's when you look at what's going on here. They picked up the phone, call a bunch of people they know and say, listen, how would you see a strategy? And well, you need to think about this. You need to think about that. That's exactly what we got last week. So ideas are good. Food hubs, processing, independent grocers. I mean, they clicked all the boxes, but how are you going to operationalize greater support for independent grocers? Like, how are you going to subsidize them now? What about control environment agriculture? It's $750 million. That's little money over 10 years when you think about Monet's bankruptcy out west. And Monet is a greenhouse project that went bust, cost $1 billion. One project, one.
Yeah.
So
these greenhouses are very capital intense. Now, the other thing that you mentioned, and two things. One is, where's this money coming from? Because the government seems to be very frequently announcing spending, but not where it's being funded by, or where who's paying for it. Well, I guess we know who's paying for it. And then what? and then what are the measurements? How do we know if we're successful? How do we know if
Great points.
What are the outcomes? What are the outcomes of this strategy?
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's I think a strategy really will make the industry accountable to measurable objectives. There was none of that. And so they were throwing money away. So in the last, I'd say 3 months, we've seen the federal government spend almost $18 billion on food security without knowing where that money is going to come from. And so I include the grocery rebate there, a 14.5.
Sylvain, maybe it'll come from the sovereign debt or wealth fund that we created. maybe it all comes from there, right?
But this is, I mean, I think we missed an opportunity to have a real discussion. And but what about supply management? Supply management is 20% of ag in Canada. Not a word.
I didn't see a word about it. I didn't see a word. That word didn't come up at all.
In Ireland, last night, I was talking to the chairman of GBS. He was telling me about his region, Cork. I didn't know this, but Eli Lilly has one of the largest manufacturing plant in the world. Half an hour from here, they produce GLP-1s. Oh, yes. It's massive. And you know what's around that plant? Dairy farms. Poetic justice. I mean, dairy farms are benefiting from what's going on with GLP-1s. That's why we're running out of cottage cheese. We're running out of yogurt.
Protein.
It's the same. It's the same happening in Ireland. Actually, they can't make enough of it. So dairy's having a moment around the world. And here we are in Canada, not even thinking about how we can capitalize on this momentum. It's incredible.
Last question for you on this, because we've spent a fair bit of time on it. Is there a nation that has a coherent strategy that you would say, point to and say, there's an example, go do what they did? You've often talked about Australia and New Zealand, particularly in the dairy sector, but is there a nation that has an ambitious strategy that you would say, go look at what they did because it was successful and measurable and all those things?
Well, I mean, if you remember with MNP, we actually did just that. We compared G20 countries, right, in terms of based on a bunch of metrics, and the U.S. does very well, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with their approach. Like the Farm Bill is pretty massive. It's all about subsidies, and they're subsidizing things that I may not want to subsidize. But I would say, when you look at specific countries, my top 3 would probably be New Zealand, Australia, and Netherlands. Okay. I would say, yeah. Okay. Those would be my top 3. They got their act together, and they're really focused on building wealth with food, with little people, with fewer people, and fewer resources than we have.
All right. Well, let's move on from there. Now, you've done some research this week with our friends at Cattle, and you talked about the most wasteful generation and Canada's best generation.
Were you surprised by the results?
I wasn't in some ways, just because I think income and affordability drives a lot of the answers to a lot of questions these days. So, we've talked about the best before debacle really many times, but this was an interesting slice at demographics and slice at the
That's
generation.
right.
So tell the people what you found.
Gen X apparently is the most wasteful generation of all, and so they do. So they're the ones that actually will throw away food before or at their best before date, basically, without considering whether or not the food is safe to eat or not. And number two are boomers. Now, I'm not too surprised by boomers, of course, because they're older, and so you got to be careful. But the Gen X result to me points to how it is really a true sandwich generation. So my guess, a lot of Gen Xers are either living with kids, with parents, or both. And obviously, the way you manage risks is a little different when you're feeding your parents, your elderly parents, or your own kids. So I suspect that's probably why Gen Xers are higher. Because I mean, I'm an Xer myself.
All right. Well, that's and that research can be found on the agri-food.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's actually part. Just so you know, it's part of our consumer food sentiment index, the Canadian Food Sentiment Index, that we published in April. And so from time to time, we actually release some of these results in more detail.
I want to talk about something. I suppose I should have connected it to the food strategy, but I was reading an article in Vancouver, BIV, Business of Vancouver, talking about how the entire salmon farming industry is just stuck waiting for a path forward. Now, we've covered the salmon farming in a couple of episodes with some great people who are doing amazing things on the West Coast, and it just seems to, the government came down with a fair bit of pressure groups on the side of no more salmon farming or open net salmon farming. But if you want to feed the people with nutritious food, I got to think that salmon farming still needs to be part of the strategy. Did you see any comment on that in the food strategy? Have you heard any rumors that the government, who said, I think when they passed this legislation, that they would, in a few months pass legislation and tell everybody? That was like 2 years ago. So what's going? Have you heard anything about what's going on, or has everybody forgotten and moved on? And
I know that the government is keen to do something, but I think things have slowed down. And I spoke to Tim Kennedy, the president of the Aquaculture Federation in Canada, and last time I spoke to him, he was incredibly surprised. Like he was optimistic about the future. So things have slowed down quite a bit in the last little while. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the Carney government is very different, has a very different approach, not as idealistic, more realistic. And so I'm glad that the tone has changed for the aquaculture sector in Canada, because I think it's actually a sector that is quite promising.
When I buy salmon now, it's all from Norway. So, what are we? I'm not sure we're accomplishing anything by, Norway's built a state of the art.
They have
farm.
capacity.
They've invested in it, and they're state of the art. And
they've,
as we often said, I mean, I'm sure there's listeners today who still think ill of farmed salmon, but they're probably paying for the sins of the past. Modern salmon farming has solved most, if not all, those issues. And I still argue with people or debate with people and point them to various places that it's equally nutritious, plus or minus. We've had your colleague on telling us that. So anyway, and by the way, nobody's chasing wild chickens around to feed yourself with chickens. Let's be clear. So, let's keep this in context. One thing, just actually, let's go into Quebec. And one thing just before we get to our interview with Le Tablée chef, and that is energy drinks are having a couple of issues. Our friend Carl Goyette from Guru is suing PepsiCo. He is suing them for abusing their dominant position at the competition tribunal. Now, at the same time, and that actually resulted in a nice pop of his stock price, by the way, which I'm a holder of, to be clear. And the city of Montreal, or the province of Quebec, actually, has been the first in Canada to ban energy drinks for kids. Now, that's got to hit the C-store. That's got to hit the C-store sector, but the C-store sector is pretty good at monitoring age because they sell smokes. So I guess they're
and
pretty
alcohol.
good at that. and alcohol, of course. So what do you make of this energy drink? Do you think that's going to catch on across the country? Why is Quebec the first one to do this? Or is Quebec just more of a nanny state, or why, or more forward thinking? What do you think?
I honestly, so I do understand why it happened in Quebec, because there were a few very public incidences of kids dying. I mean, dying. So I think there was a young boy, a teenage boy, who was out skiing, I think, and died as a result of drinking these. He drank too much. And there was another actually incident last year or the year before of a girl, 15, during her lunch break at high school, went to a convenience store, decided to put alcohol in those drinks, and also eventually died as well. So these cases were very public, and it became impossible as a politician to register any concerns whatsoever in banning these products for young children or young teenagers. But the context is very different outside of Quebec. That's why there's not a whole lot of push right now going on. Because when you think about it, if you're banning these types of drinks, wouldn't you want to do the same with coffee? I mean, we're talking about caffeine here. It's not illegal. And so I mean, right now you can walk into a Starbucks at the age of 13 and order a coffee. I mean, nothing will actually prevent you from doing that. But you're talking about the same drug here. And so that's why I think a lot of people outside of Quebec are wondering, is this coherent or not?
I guess it's going to cause some trouble for our friends at, I think of McDonald's, for example, who's introducing energy drinks at some point. I'm not sure they're in Canada yet, but then they're going to have to think about who they can serve those to in the province of Quebec,
just
right?
announced it a few weeks ago, so it's coming. Yeah, so it's going to be and their environment has nothing to do with IDing anybody. So they're going to have to implement a new policy across the board.
Maybe they just, I can't imagine IDing at McDonald's. Maybe they'll just not offer the product in the province of Quebec.
That's the thing. So if I were a Guru shareholder, like I think differently about the market for sure. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? I would say it's concerning, because I mean, when you have a crisis like that, when you see these cases becoming so public, you end up seeing policymakers making decisions that sometimes aren't consistent with what else is going on. But
right. All right. Well, listen, let's get to our amazing interview with Jean-François Archambault. And he's going to tell us all about the work he does.
Tablée des chefs.
And boy, it's so impressive. He just wrapped up a big initiative at Formula One, for example. And the numbers he rolls out are just nothing short of wildly impressive.
Yeah.
As he's a very impressive gentleman, and his team is amazing. So let's get to that interview now.
So Jean-François Archambault is finally with us today, live at SIAL. On top of that, Jean-François, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation.
So Jean-François is a legend, but for our listeners from all over the world, I'd like you to introduce yourself. Like, Jean-François Archambault. Who is Jean-François Archambault? La Tablée des chefs. What is la Tablée des chefs?
So I'm a social entrepreneur running a non-for-profit that's led in an entrepreneurial way. The only way I know how to do things, and it's based on two pillars: feed and educate. Feed pillar is on food security, and educate pillar is on food autonomy. So it's circular. Both needs to be handled right now. We'd hope to be working more in food education, developing skills and bringing youth to understand first, getting them to handle the basic need of feeding themselves, feeding their families eventually, maybe working in the industry too. So it is pretty circular, because we're bringing the chefs community together in the country to support both pillars.
Yeah.
So the chefs in the culinary community are at the core of what we do. And I wanted to create this ecosystem so that, not to solve everything, but to play definite role and impactful role on, sustain people on the basic need of feeding themselves, feeding people in some way that cannot be fed by themselves, and providing food to them, and then bringing the joy and the fun of cooking to everybody that hasn't had a chance to experience it that way.
So give us a sense of how successful you've been with the Tablée des Chefs over the years. Could you give us more details in terms of like how many kids you got involved, how many chefs you had involved with the initiative?
Yeah. This started in my head as a student at l'ITHQ in Montreal, as I was studying for
the chef school in Montreal.
Hotel management. Yeah, I was doing hotel management course for 3 years.
Did you always want to be in food? Did that animate you from a young man? Were you always going into this industry?
I remember I saw, like, I just turned 50. Okay, so my father,
still a young man, as far as I'm concerned,
took some pictures out for that 50th party, and did a little reel, and it was they made a little bit of fun of me. That was fine, I can handle it. But I saw a picture with my dad that had a broken foot. So he had, and he was laying in the garden, and I always
Your dad had a broken foot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in the garden, and I had my hands in the soil, and I was looking at, like, in the picture, I look at him, and it's like, I think I was 8 or 9. And I tell that story when I talk about the roots of how I became interested around food and how I grew up. And, I was born in Montreal, in Huntsic, and I moved at 1 year old. But I moved at 1 year old to Laval, Sainte-Rose, Champfleury, and like there was 7 homes that was just dezoned to build houses. Mayor Lefebvre had just put everything white so that they can build. They turned the fields into white zoning, and they could build everything. And now there's like 7,000 homes in that area called Champfleury, where I grew up, and I lived there for 24 years. But our land was 16,000 square feet, so we had a big garden. And so I remember from that point. And running from school and going in the kitchen and wanting to know what my mom had cooked for dinner. I was a foodie, and I was interested
right from the beginning.
I cannot remember when I was not.
When we've talked to chefs who are farther on in their career, I always have an interesting discussion around the role of creativity and the role of work. I think in some ways, who was it we were talking to? I think it was Chuck Hughes, and I was saying, these food shows, does it create an impression amongst young people that being a chef is all about creativity and fun, where really it is a it's a very it could be very manual, and it's a hard job, just like gardening, right? Like, what animated you? Were you always creative, and do you think you'd like to spread that word that there's both creativity, but it's also not for everybody?
No,
right?
it's not. I think it's about developing taste to that first you enjoy because you're being served something. A taste of something raw that you taste individually, and the combination of other things that come together, and sometimes you'll try to mix them together and it won't work, and sometimes you'll have a feel and you'll develop your palate. Like developing your palate from a young age, even tasting things that you don't like at first, but going back at them and trying them again. And at some point wanting that taste, it's like through maybe teen years or a little bit like early adult years, there's tastes that you probably hated when you were growing up that now you're craving. Yeah. And so how you're developing your taste is something interesting, and it makes you a better cook because you're then daring and trying to mix things, and it opens up so much more. Now I think that when I look at growing up and enjoying food, like I can tell you, I was 10 or 11. I was printing. I was typing actually on a typewriter. It tells you that I turned 50.
You're 50.
Exactly. And I was typing a menu that I was rolling up with a little ribbon, and I was hosting my parents' home for dinner in like my own restaurant.
Wow!
And I would prepare soup, salad.
They played along.
Yeah, they played along. Yeah, for sure. And so, like on a Friday or on a Saturday, I would like get them and enjoy them so they can be together. And I would serve them dinner in my restaurant, and I would put the name of my and that was part of how I grew up around food.
What a great story!
Yeah.
What a great. Now let's get back to the line that.
Well, just before we move on, I just want to, because I know Jean-François is humble. I've been told. So I just want to throw a few numbers to our listeners. So this is coming from your website.
Yeah.
So since 2002, since the inception of the movement, you've cooked 26.4 million portions. I suspect it's probably even more than that now.
It's recovered food from chefs and over, now 450 places where we recover food instead of throwing it to waste.
Yeah.
And it's edible surplus food coming from 4-star chefs like well-known chefs in hotels, sports venues, we're now in all NHL arenas recovering food in the suites, in the lounge, in the restaurants. We're doing F1 weekend in a couple of weekends again in Montreal. We're doing the Indy in Toronto. We're doing National Bank Open tennis. We're recovering over 3.3 million meals annually. So this is cumulative on when we started. We started back in 2005, 2006. So 20 years ago, we started in the Bell Centre with the Montreal Canadiens. And Pierre Boivin at the time gave me the chance to...
the former GM?
Yeah, to try it, test it. And said, if it's going to work... It's a good place to test it.
Yeah.
The biggest food outlet in the city and the province, and it's like if it's gonna work. If it's not, then you'll know.
Yeah, exactly.
But it worked. It worked, and we took 100,000 meals out the first season in 42 home games.
Unbelievable!
Yeah.
And you've actually empowered almost 100,000 young kids.
Yeah, we're reaching that this year.
And teaching them and learning them about food and cooking.
We started in 4 of the highest poverty index high schools in Montreal. Saint-Henri, Hochelaga-Maisonneuve, Saint-Michel. 4 schools that Diane de Courcy, back in the days when she was the head of the Montreal School Board, she said, if you're succeeding in those 4 schools, then I'll help you to get into more schools and we'll get you some help to get funding. And she was supportive at the start. And we started in those 4 schools. I remember going myself, doing the registration because it's an extracurricular program. So we would be invited with all the other extracurricular programs. It was like at lunchtime, we would set up a booth and talk about. And there was nothing before. So, and I remember at that point. There's this boy coming over to us, and I was with, Philippe Grand. Philippe is a nutritionist, and he worked a lot with the younger. At first, Philippe was out of school, and I tempted him to come and work with me at La Tablée at first, so he could start to do some of the work he wanted to do, and we were together at this Saint-Henri high school, and this tall young guy comes and he signs up for the class. He signs up for the workshop, the culinary program, and Philip goes like, "Why are you registering to the program? Why would you like to?" He said, "Because I know I'm gonna eat on Tuesday night." And so I'm like. We're looking at each other, and he continues his, walks away, and we look at each other, and we never took that into kind of consideration. Like for us, it was just like, hey, we're gonna have them cooking, cooking, other learning. Things like self-esteem, for sure. Those things you wanna happen, and we see happening everywhere now. Now we're in 350 public high school in the country. We're in 75 high school in 8 other Canadian provinces. We're fully bilingual. So in English, it's kitchen brigades. In French, it's the brigades culinaires. And
which province are you not in?
Alberta.
Really?
Alberta, yeah. We're looking into Calgary and Edmonton.
We need to work on that.
Actually, you know what? We're in one school in Edmonton, so it's not true. So 9 provinces. And
And you're called La Tablée des Chefs anywhere else.
Yes,
yeah, that's what I thought.
Something. Yeah, that's something.
You've had some fundraisers in Toronto, I know, because your name is
La
known.
Grande Tablée.
La Grande Tablée.
Yeah. There's this kind of French flair to cooking that like.
People love Quebec outside of Quebec, by the way. They love Quebec on their plates.
Oh, I know.
Outside of Quebec.
I know, and I've traveled the whole country, and I've there's so many chefs and so many people, so many farmers, so many support that I have developing this project and engaging people locally. So local chefs are going into the schools in their community to do a change. Local chefs are getting in the food recovery program to recover food for the local community frontline agency that we pair them up with. We work with Second Harvest also on pairing up on the food recovery, because sometimes their awareness of who's who, it accelerates us, because then we just set up the program with the chefs and the culinary team, and then we work with Second Harvest to dispatch and try to see who has the best fit to be on the receiving end of the food we'll be recovering.
Right.
Because at first there was kind of I remember, a time where we could not recover that food, and there was kind of misconception about the liability aspect of it.
Oh yeah,
and the Good Samaritan Act is protecting this. This doesn't mean that it should not be there should not be parameters to protect the food safety aspect of it, and there is. So from the start, I remember I was invited at the National Assembly in Quebec, and before we were recovering like any food, and I was in front of our Ministry of Agriculture back then, and I pushed forward the fact that the hotel and the hospitality industry could play a significant role in providing. For me, on the stats side, when you look at the 47% of waste in our in globally. The hospitality industry is responsible for depending on how you look at it, 9% to 12%. So it's not like the food banks will handle the big part, the farmers, the bulk food, the non-perishable, through the grocery store program, where they recover like thousands of tons of food. For us, it's not quantity, it's the quality. You would not throw away that quality food that,
exactly,
for the frontline agencies, they're ready to serve it right away. So anybody would eat the leftover food from any top chefs or well-known chefs. We do it at home when we host our family on a Sunday. We pack it up, and then we'll serve in the lunch in different ways for dinner on the following day, and then through the Wednesday lunch for the kids. So you would want to get the leftover or the surplus food from any chef.
Yeah.
So we bring them to the front line, and then it brings because the food banks are not able to handle all the 100% of the needs of all the community partners, because there's so many more now and the needs are so high and they're spiking. It serves its purpose, and food should feed people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your website. You have a lot of different events. There's one in particular that attracted my attention, La Grande Marmite.
Yeah.
And I see Ricardo's picture there.
Yeah.
He's a former guest of our show.
Yeah.
Tell us more about La Grande Marmite. And I know that you have a couple in May, and I suspect you have them all over the year, throughout the year.
Yeah.
So what is La Grande Marmite?
So we started that last year. Actually, what happened is we were waiting for the federal fund for school food program, the National School Food Program. And the Quebec government was almost the last to sign the deal with the federal government to get the funding to... so Doug Ford signed, I think, $110 million, and it went pretty fast. It was kind of one of the first to sign, and Ontario got the money to enhance their school food programs. So they distributed money to Toronto, to the school districts to get more money to do more action. It's not sufficient. It's still under, there's still under investment in the school food program, but it's better. It's better, and that federal funding has a lot of impact, I think. But we were waiting on it, and just to give you a sense, like I was put in charge by Ricardo, the school lab program, the
school
lab école. Ricardo put me in charge of the...
Canada's a big champion of that.
Yes, and he was working with Pierre Lavoie and Pierre Thibault on like architecture, getting the kids to move with Pierre, and then Ricardo was all the school food program and ambition. And he said, JF, I want you to lead that aspect with me and kind of be my leader with that. So I brought all the community partners together that were working in the school. Food literacy, school food programs, breakfast club, all the programs. And our ambition was to put together an action plan in the 6 labs. So the 6 new schools that was going to be built were going to be as ambitious as they can to put together an action plan. And I went around and I was speaking with school principals, and they were telling me how, the kids will come, they'll have a breakfast program, but after that, there was nothing else. So still the kid that would have the breakfast program would not come in with a lunch any day of the school year.
Right.
And the money that they would get would support the breakfast program, and then maybe a snack.
Yeah.
So now with La Cantine pour tous that wants to serve a full meal after the breakfast, and so they'll have the breakfast and then the meal for high poverty index schools. So all the schools that are 7 and up. So the index goes from 1 to 10, and 10 being the highest. They started investing in a full meal. So you'll have the breakfast, then you'll have the full meal, because we don't know. The logical thing to say is that when the kid doesn't come with a lunchbox, he gets a breakfast. After that, if he doesn't get a lunch, is he going to get dinner at the table? If the parent is not able to support with a lunchbox, might not be able to support with a meal once the kid is back home.
Yeah.
And we don't know. We're not going into the houses of people to check. To see or to check, So there needs to be something happening midday. So the lunch, that's why the lunch is super important. Breakfast is crucial, but the lunch is core, because then if you're just breakfast to breakfast, there's a gap to be filled. So we looked at the money. And when in the pandemic, we did the Solidarity Kitchens, and we did 4.4 million meals because the collective kitchens were not able to receive volunteers. And we saw that the collective kitchens were supportive of 3.5 million meals in a year.
Yikes.
To the front line. And we say, who's going to cook those 3.5 million meals? So we kept the chefs in their kitchens, and we took the wage subsidy. And we said, you're going to get the credit back 75% of the wages through the government in the pandemic, and we'll cover the 25% that's missing, and we'll create a community meal program, and we'll grant you the 25%, but then all your kitchen staff will be working for La Tablée, and they'll be cooking meals for the community. So at the highest point, we were doing 150,000 meals a week.
Wow.
Sending
numbers are incredible.
These meals across Canada. So we did 900,000 meals in Vancouver at the Rogers Arena with the culinary team of the Vancouver Canucks.
I remember seeing the pictures of that.
It's crazy. It was crazy.
That was pretty impressive.
I just got back from Vancouver. I interviewed David Long from the Greater Vancouver Food Bank, and he's doing some...
we work with them. They were on the receiving end of those meals. They received 900,000 meals from the Solidarity Kitchen meals through Robert Bartley, the executive chef at the Rogers Arena.
I mean, what he was sharing about how his philosophy, that there's lots of food, it's just all in the wrong place, kind of thing. I mean, it's just bringing it all together. You've got multiple goals. You talked about it quickly. It's also about self-respect and education, and that story of the young man who said, I just want to sign up the program to make sure I can eat, but it's also all those other things that kind of come in as not ancillary benefits to all this stuff. It's pretty incredible, right?
So when we finished the Solidarity Kitchen, the community partners that received the meals, they say, why do you stop? Like, the wage subsidy was off, the financial model could not be sustained. So, but then we realized that in that time that the vegetable wholesalers were wasting so much vegetables. We were already in contact with them. We said, hey, what are you going to do with that? And so we got a letter signed from Courchain La Rose, one of the biggest vegetable wholesaler. Instead of sending it away, they were already offering it to the food bank, but sometime the food bank is full and maxed out. They can't take the 7 pallets of broccoli. So we'll take all of that in the year and we'll transform it into soup. And then we'll protein the soup with lentils so that it'll be vegetable based. So there's no allergens, there's no protein and meat protein, and so everybody could have access to the soup. And we'll distribute the soup to the elementary schools. Because the other thing that we saw is there's no kitchens in the schools.
Right.
They were not built. They're small schools, and all over the country, and Quebec is the same. There's no cafeteria. The kids are eating in their class. So we need to be able to set up in a hallway and plug into regular wire those induction kettles and then send the soup to the school, warm them up, and get the kids from 6th grade to serve the soup. So that's a Solidarity Soup program that came out of the pandemic. And we started and piloted in 5 elementary schools on the South Shore of Montreal. Yeah. And now we're up in 84 elementary schools in 3 years. And we're going to be in 140 in the fall. And we're piloting in Niagara Falls and Winnipeg the soup program.
That's incredible.
So that is key. And the Grande Marmite was I needed to be able to fund 60 schools, because that's what I was asking the government, the Quebec government. Said, when you get the federal funds, we'll apply for them, and then we'll be able to fund the 60 new schools we want to get to.
Right.
But they weren't able to commit to that because they hadn't settled the deal with the federal government.
Yeah.
So we said, you know what? We have, no matter what, we'll do it. So Solio, Pascal came and said, do you have a project? Do you have something that you're working on that would have great impact? I said, Pascal, we could fund 60 schools and distribute soup. He came over to our pilot program in a school he saw, and the team said, we'll be behind you on this. And so what we decided to do is I spoke to Pierre Lavoie. I said, I want to do a Grand Défi, but I want to do it with food. Yeah. And so we created teams of 6, little brigades of 6.
And a big défi is a big deal in Quebec.
And the thing was like, why don't we take the Palais des Congrès, the convention center, we take one of the biggest floor and we fill it up with 1,200 people, all bagging soup in bags of soup, dry soup mix, so that they can be distributed to families and food banks. And the challenge will be, if you want to be in that group, you need to fund the soup program in the schools. So you'll need to raise the first year was $1,500 per teams of 6, and people would raise the $1,500 and they would get their table confirmed. And Ricardo hosts this, and there's a DJ, and it's at lunchtime. In 1 hour last year, we did 42,000 bags of 6 portions of soup that we distributed to the Quebec Food Bank. And we raised $400,000 to fund 60 schools. Yeah. And then the government came in late, and they got the money to us, so we're now able to get 240.
As usual.
But still, they're at the table now, so it's fun. Okay. But the second edition will sustain the 60 schools that we got, because we're raising about the same money, so we'll keep on paying for those 60-some schools. And now the mayor of Quebec, Bruno Marchand, said, we want to do this in I invited him in Montreal, and he said, no, I'm not coming to Montreal. Come in. When you're ready, come to Quebec and we'll do. So we talked with Québécois, and we booked the Videotron Center. And we're going to be on the ice, surface of the ice.
Of course.
And we're going to be about 600 people, about 100 teams, and we'll raise about $150,000, and that's on May 27th at the Videotron Center. Yeah. And we'll fund about 20 new schools just in the greater Quebec area. And now with Marriott in Toronto in late fall, we're organizing and planning for a grande marmite that will be called Soups On by Marriott, Toronto, happening somewhere in early December at the Sheraton downtown Toronto.
Of this year.
And gather 200 teams, just like we do in Montreal, and raise about $400,000 to sustain about 60 schools in the GTA area in serving elementary schools with soup, daily soup.
Yeah. I got a last question for you, kind of a wrap question. Very generous with your time. I don't know how you find time to do all the things you do. It's very impressive. You fold the fabric of time or something. I don't know how you.
Well, I have my partner Geneviève. She's working with us now. We're working together. Still have some time to work with her dad in the family business, but she gives me. I say three days. She looks at me. She gives me really 7 days. 7 days a week. We have 5 kids together too. So young twins of 6. So, goodness. But
if I gave you a magic wand, and you can make one wish, what would it be to move this agenda to the next level? If you said maybe it's in the political realm and the business realm, but you've got one thing that you could do more than you are doing today, which is quite impressive. What would it be?
Partner up with government at the highest level. To get transparency, to get data, to get onboarding, and a plan together that can rally everybody, and that is serious and ambitious, because it's not true that you can face such challenges with patching. We cannot patch anymore, and we cannot. Like you've seen, there's a strike with the community organization here in Quebec. I was not all for that strike. I think they were. I understand why they did it, but it just gives you a sense of how people are struggling in holding our social safety net is so thin. And we don't realize, and most Canadians take it for granted. And I know they're supportive of the community organization, but I think we really have to not be working in patching anymore and really be ambitious. And when Prime Minister Carney talks about Great Canadian Project, I think on the social side, food security has to be taken seriously and has to be ambitious in terms of how we'll create. And the community organization, social entrepreneurs, there's so many people that are talented, that are doing things that are complementary to the work that La Tablée is doing. I think about different organizations, and I think like people like Laurie Nicol at Second Harvest and all the food banks, they're doing such great work. They've modified.
I used to be on
approach.
The board of Second Harvest.
I think. So. If the message by the government is like we're serious about this and getting them at the table, I think is and lead that. I would love to lead that. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. So I'd like to invite our listeners to go on the Tablée des Chefs website. You can actually give a donation to your group.
Yes.
You're doing great work. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Yes, Jean-François, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we are back. Let's talk about a couple things just before we sign off. Kind of a bit of a longer episode again. That was we had the opportunity to talk to Jean-François for quite a while.
Deserves it.
So, I was ruining the day when the frozen concentrated drinks disappeared from the market. Minute Maid pulled them off the market. I make some delicious frozen, semi-frozen cocktails in the summer, and I'm like, how am I going to do that? Well, Loblaws has come to the rescue, so they're bringing it back. What does that tell us about the ability to read the market and affordability? Because I remember, let's take it back, one of your comments about concentrated juice was that it was a very affordable product in the frozen fruit section aisle, and it was not great that it was disappearing. What do you make of all this?
Nostalgia, but I think Loblaw has the power to take advantage of these opportunities. There was a bit of a void created by Minute Maid's exit, and so they took it. I mean, we kind of saw the same play with frozen pizza and Nestle a few years ago when they exited Canada.
Yeah. I mean, you were more worried about that. It's funny, you were worried about that. I wasn't worried about that at all. I thought you were worried there'd be less choice in the market. But,
I was a fan of Delicious, so just so you know. Yeah,
I see. You're personally going to miss it.
Can you really replace Delicious? No. But can you replace Minute Maid? Sure. But a Minute Maid, I mean, it's again, I actually think it's a great play coming from Loblaw, using the private label, going in the market at a decent price, focusing on nostalgia. A lot of parents actually remember those days when you actually had to put this like gooey thing into a jar, into a pitcher, and then put water in there, and it's
maybe a little vodka too, by the way. Maybe a little vodka, by the way, as well.
At the age of 10, sure.
Not for the age of 10.
We didn't put vodka.
I'm nostalgic for last summer. That's what I'm nostalgic for.
Kool-Aid was our thing in our home because we were we were dirt poor, so we couldn't afford Minute Maid. Minute Maid was for my mom. Can you imagine? She had a section in a fridge. Said, "Well, this is for me," and you had all the nice sauces and the jam, and
it's Tang for the rest of you, Tang for the rest of the family. That's right.
Yeah,
good enough
Tang
for the astronauts, good enough for my
Kool-Aid
children.
for the rest of you. Yeah, collared water. There you go. I love you. I love you, kids.
Last but not least, Foodtastic, the Montreal-based franchisor that has just grown. They've got what now? 27 brands underfoot, and of course the latest news before this news, because I just keep rolling it out, was they're going to be the master franchisor for Dunkin' Donuts. Now they just bought Kinton Ramen, which is another kind of a food court franchisee. But we got to get these guys on, because I was looking into them, and they started with fairly humble, like $50 million, second cup and a few second off brands, and now they're closing in on $1 billion, and they haven't even launched Dunkin' Donuts yet. So there's some secret sauce I'd like to learn about from these guys.
The Pappas aren't necessarily keen in giving interviews, to be honest. I mean, the news about Dunkin' Donuts surprised me, because you don't really hear much about them or from them, but they actually gave interview about Dunkin' Donuts, which was interesting, because I met Mr. Pappas 2 years ago in Montreal, and it actually invited him to the podcast. And I gave him my card, and I said, "Listen, if you're interested, just email me." But he never did email me. But I was told that he's not a big fan of interviews, but maybe things have changed.
Well, as it goes, it's one thing point in time when you're just growing. It's another thing when you're reach this scale that, listen, it's taken me sometimes 4 years to get somebody to sit down on the microphone, because the timing's got to be right. They got to feel it's worthwhile. And maybe in the growth phase, the timing wasn't right. So maybe we'll get them on in season 7. All right. That's a wrap on this episode. Safe travels back home, Sylvain, from Ireland, and I will see you. I will be again on the road next week, but I'm looking forward to talking to you again next week. So once again, I'm Michael LeBlanc, media entrepreneur, and you are?
And I'm the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Safe travels to everyone who's traveling this week.
Take care.